Okay, chapter 15, part 2. Let's continue. Labor force participation of men and women in the US economy, part 2. Data on labor force participation. In 1950s, difference between participation rates for men and women, as we discussed, were almost 90% for men, 30% for women. Again, labor force participation is not the same as employment or unemployment. When you put these two together, that's labor force participation. When you say 80% of men were among the labor force, it means from the total population of men, 80% or 87% of them were working already or looking for work. It means that they want to work. In 2015, this number for women went up from 35% to almost 55% of women were working or looking for work. And for men, it went down from 87% to almost 70%. Fall in men's labor force. Young men stay in school longer. Again, men feel less pressure to go to work. Exactly, as soon as they finish high school, they don't need to go to work, so they can stay in school longer, get a degree, things like that. And older men can retire earlier and live longer. Also, one more thing that increased this decreased the gap between men and women was also the fact that as more women are entering the labor force, people generally live longer. So older men can also live longer thanks to better health care and things like that. Now, with more women employed, more fathers can now stay at home to raise their children. Let's say me and my wife, we're both working and we have children, but then suddenly I lose my job. Especially this is true for when there's an economic crisis or something like that. Now, when I lose my job, and my wife is already working, she has an income. Now, I don't have the pressures to immediately find any job just exactly after I lost my current job. So now I can go back to school to get a better degree, get myself better prepared, or I can stay home, help with the children or the housework while I'm looking for a better job. One perfect example for this is my own dad. He was working in textile and he lost his job at textile. I remember because, like, in my family, my mom was a high school teacher, but our other, like my dad's friends, their wives were all housewife. So as soon as we all they all lost their jobs, the Iranian textile so overnight disappeared because of certain issues that we discussed before. An industry just overnight vanished. So what happened was that he was unemployed and they were also unemployed. But because they had no other source of income, they had to immediately go back to work, find any kind of job, anything available for them. But my dad, on the other hand, he had the option to take his time, look for work, look for a better job. So he actually spent like 6 months to a year unemployed. And then he found a very good job, an executive position job at the Pepsi factory. And he became more successful after 10 years. When you look back, you can see that after 10 years, because of that 6 months of time that he had to spend looking for a better job compared to his friends and his previous co-workers, after 10 years, he became much more successful than them because he had the option of being able to wait compared to the others. Counted as being out of the labor force, full-time students and retirees and stay-at-home dads. Now, if you stay at home and just don't go to work, Again, you're not unemployed. If I don't want to work, I'm not unemployed. I'm only considered unemployed if I want to work, but right now I cannot find a job that I think is suitable. Official unemployment rate, useful but an imperfect measure of joblessness. When we're talking about the unofficial unemployment rate, it has its flaws and its problem. If you remember from our discussion about the inflation rate and the GDP, they also have certain flaws and problems. But overall, because these are big picture data, they can give you a accurate and acceptable overall picture, a bird's eye view from above, that what's going on. So official unemployment rate, it's good in this sense that it gives you a bigger picture. It gives you the bigger picture so that you can see what's going on. Movements in and out of the labor force, common, more than one third of unemployed, recent entrance into the labor force. Now, it's very common for people to lose their jobs, to be unemployed, and then find another job. For some people, it's more common. Like if you ask my dad, for example, he believes I'm really bad at keeping a job because, well, just to make a joke, my sister actually used to call me a boomerang every time my parents sent me out of the house. I was like, I'm going to find a job and live my own life. And then I found a job. I'll stay there for like a couple of months, then got laid off for millions of different reasons. Then, like the boomerang, I came back home. Again, they sent me out. Again, I got fired. So it's common to find a job, lose your job, go back, and back and forth into the labor force. And more than one third of people who are unemployed, they never had a job before. Again, this comes to this situation when you're recently entered the market for the labor force and you have no job experience. So it's your first job, you have no job experience, you're at a disadvantage compared to the other people that you're competing with. That's why more than one third of the unemployed people are just recent entrants into the labor force. Unemployment, not all unemployment ends with the job seeker finding a job. This is a very uh, tragic uh, thing to say. Half of all spills of unemployment ends when the unemployed leaves the labor force. Almost half of the spells of unemployment ends when the person just realizes that it's impossible for him or her to ever find a job. So just leaves the labor force. And of course, this is again the much more complicated than just saying this. As you can see, some of those who report on being unemployed may not be trying hard to find a job because if you're unemployed in many countries, you're entitled to certain unemployment benefits. You want to qualify for a government help, or you're already working but paid under the table. So, for example, if I'm eligible to receive government unemployment benefits, I may have a reason to find a job and being paid in cash under the table, and then also enjoy the benefits that I receive from the government as unemployment insurance. Or I would just enjoy my unemployment benefits while not being like very honest about trying to find a job. For example, I would say, okay, I only want to be a CEO of a multinational corporation. That's just my talents. I'm only good at being a CEO of a multinational corporation. Okay, will you hire me? Any multi-billion dollar company? Will you hire me as your CEO? No? Oh, that's bad. So I'm going to be unemployed. These things happen. Identifying unemployment. Some of those who are out of the labor force may want to work. They're discouraged workers. So again, this time we're not talking about unemployed. We're talking about those who are out of the labor force. Some of the people who are out of the labor force, they try to find work for a few years, let's say. They couldn't find, so now they're discouraged workers. They say, okay, just it's not working. Just I'm going home. I'm done with this. Discouraged workers, individuals who would like to work, but they have given up looking for a job. Now, this table two measures of labor underutilization. As you can see, these are measures by the for the U.S. economy, most probably from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Measure U1, persons employed 15 weeks or longer as a percentage of a civilian labor force. These are different measures for labor underutilization. So it's not unemployment and it's not employment, it's something in between. For example, U4 is total unemployed plus discouraged workers and as a percentage of the civilian labor force plus discouraged workers. So U4 is total unemployment plus something. U3 is just the total unemployment. U1, on the other hand, is people who are underemployed. They are like 15, only persons unemployed 15 weeks or longer as a, sorry, they are like super unemployed. They're like, they have been unemployed for the longest time. The Bureau of Labor Statistics define marginally attached workers, currently are neither working nor looking for work, but indicate that they want and are available for a job and have looked for work sometimes in recent past. Discouraged workers, marginally attached workers who have given a job market related reason for not currently looking for a job. Again, for example, I would say the reason I'm not looking for a job is that I tried to be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, but no one would hire me, so I just gave up. Persons employed part-time for economic reasons want and are available for full-time work, but have had to settle for a part-time schedule. These are common, where I'm coming from, these are common in agriculture sector for like internal migration. Certain people in certain areas of the country would migrate to the other areas in the harvest season to find work at agriculture. And after the harvest is over, finished, they just go back home and still, because of the like economic mess that exists in certain parts of the country, they cannot find work, so they can wait until the next harvest season. How long are the unemployed without work? Most spells of unemployment are short. Most unemployment observed at any given time is long term. Most people who become unemployed will soon find jobs. How long are the unemployed without work? Again, most spells are short, and most unemployment observed at given time is long term. When we say most spells are short, that means, for example, Jack and Jill. These two are unemployed. Jack will find a job, go to work, and then replaced by Jack number 2. Find a job, go to work, Jack number 3. Find a job, go to work. But Jill, the whole time, still unemployed. So that's why we say most spells are short and most unemployment observed is long term. Most of the economy's unemployment problem attributable to the relatively few workers who are jobless for long periods of time. So Jacks find job super quick and they leave the unemployed basket, while Jill stays unemployed. Unemployment rate never falls to zero, fluctuates around the natural rate of unemployment. Frictional unemployment, it takes time for workers to search for the job that best suit their tastes and skills. Explain relatively short spells of unemployment. Now, why do we say unemployment rate never falls to zero? Because if you remember when we're talking about markets, supply and demand, at one point you reach an equilibrium. So everyone is happy and then the market clears. But in the labor market, this never happens because we're dealing with people here. You can never find the perfect situation with everyone in the labor force has a job. Even before the coronavirus crisis started, we had like 300,000 open positions in the US economy. Like 300,000 positions were available, but no one wanted them. And we still had around 3% unemployment rate. So almost 3% of the labor force wanted to work, but they couldn't find the work that they wanted. And at the same time, 300,000 people wanted to hire somebody, but couldn't find the perfect person for their position. So because we're dealing with these annoying creatures called humans, unemployment rate can never fall to zero. Frictional unemployment, it takes time for workers to search for the job that best suit their tastes and skills. Explain relatively short spells of unemployment. Right now for the coronavirus crisis, one of the biggest threat is this frictional unemployment. Like after the shutdown is over and economy reopens, it may take some time for workers to immediately find work. And this could actually cause a lot of problem in the economy. If the government and businesses can come up with certain way to lower this frictional unemployment period, that would help a lot. Structural unemployment results because of the number of jobs available in some labor markets. It's insufficient to provide a job for everyone who wants one. Again, the number of positions for CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies are not sufficient for everyone who wants to be a CEO of a multinational company. Explains longer spells of unemployment results when wages are set above the equilibrium. Now, if you remember from our discussion on price ceiling and price floor, government intervention, minimum wage law was a price floor. It means that the minimum wage, the floor that you can pay your employees is this much. You cannot go below it. Results when wages are set above the equilibrium, minimum wage laws, unions, and efficiency wages. We'll come back to them. Job search, process by which workers find appropriate jobs given their tastes and skills. Workers differ in their tastes and skills. Jobs differ in their attributes. Information about job candidates and job vacancies is disseminated slowly. Some frictional unemployment is inevitable. Changes in demand for labor among different firms, changes in composition of demand among industries or regions, sectoral shifts, changing patterns of international trade. Again, after the coronavirus, we're going to see a huge shift in international trade. I'm worried there could be like serious long-term implications, changing patterns of international trade. Some frictional unemployment is inevitable. The economy is always changing. The economy fell by 838,000 in construction and 2.1 million jobs in manufacturing was lost. But at the same time, almost an equal number put together in mining and computer system designs and food services and healthcare were added. More than that. So healthcare, food services, mining and computer system designs, went up, while construction and manufacturing went down. Reduced time for unemployment to find jobs. This is one of those structural reforms that if you manage to pull off, you could reduce the natural rate of unemployment. This is one of those reforms that could transform the country's economy completely. If you can reduce the time for the unemployed person to be connected to the person who wants to hire him or her, these two would connect, negotiate, reach a deal, go to work. Government programs to facilitate job search, government-run employment agencies, public training programs. I can't say for sure that government-run employment agencies and public training programs are efficient, but they help. Now, unemployment insurance. This is another topic. We're going to come back to this in part 3.